Hello, everyone. Very sorry it has been so long. There have been quite a few life events occurring for every single one of the Spooners, Meeples. What are we calling ourselves these days? Here we are in July, halfway through the year, and I think to celebrate half Christmas, I want to talk about something that's very, very near and dear to my heart, and that is role-playing games. I started gaming with RPGs. I would, go play at a friend's house whose dad had always played D&D, so he taught him, and then that guy taught the rest of us, or, a friend whose sister was in college, and then she learned about RPGs, so she'd come home over Christmas and host a session for her brother and all of his friends, stuff like that. So it was really how I got my start. Honestly, how I started board gaming was through RPGs. I met some guys at work that were running a campaign, and I tagged on to that campaign. Obviously, I was invited, but we played, and I would say after maybe 5 or 6 sessions, they started inviting me to do other things, and I formed friendships with these guys, and then they invited me to board game night. It was actually like a whole crazy fun thing that night. We all went to get hibachi, and then I played Twilight Imperium and Game of Thrones. And I credit my entire involvement in the hobby to role-playing games and what they do for people. They let people dive in to another world, more so than board gaming even. You get to create this character and live in this world and do all of these fun things and roll dice, or not roll dice, and really explore and create a world as you take part in it. And I love that. And I'd really like to talk about some of my favorite systems that do that. Go down the stack, starting with some of the bigger names, the heavy hitters, and kind of get into some more obscure stuff, maybe harder to find, but systems that I really, really love. So let's hop on to it. The first one, not unexpected, is Dungeons and Dragons. This is the 5th edition starter box. It's classic. There are certainly some problematic aspects of the system, but Wizards of the Coast has done a really good job making a really solid and accessible role-playing game system, especially in 5th edition. I wasn't too keen on 4th. If I wanted to play a video game, I'd have played a video game. It didn't need to be the pen and paper version, but 5th edition I think is really solid. I think the advantage system is super cool. The classes are really tight. Everything makes sense. So for gaming in a fantasy world, pretty high fantasy, definitely Dungeons and Dragons. Next up is less of a world that's presented like Dungeons and Dragons and more universal, and that is the Fate core system. I'm also a big fan of Fate Accelerated. I think those go hand in hand. But this is more of kind of generalized rules for how to impose a setting upon like established characters, and like kind of here's this bare bones rule set. Now you can put whatever you want into it, and you can actually see this is a copy that I have tabbed for very easy access. Which is another reason I love Fate, is that it's super accessible by tons of people. I really like a lot of the stuff that this game presents, with the rewarding you for role-playing your character very, very well, and kind of sticking to the character traits that you've assigned yourself. I like that a lot. So the next one is from Privateer Press, and it is the Iron Kingdoms. You guys can see that. This is the role-playing game that accompanies their War Machine miniatures game. They have a new book out, same rule set and everything, that is the Hordes side of stuff. So whatever flavor you are most passionate about, you can find in this setting. It actually follows a lot of the same rules and established mechanics of the tabletop miniatures game, and that's something I really like. Where role-playing games were a bridge for me to get into board gaming, I actually think that Iron Kingdoms can be a bridge to let people come over that really only have experience in war games or miniatures gaming into role-playing games, and then maybe into other aspects of the hobby. But really, really fun stuff. I like it a lot. I think the class system is really cool. The way you kind of choose between two classes to really form your own creation every time. It's a lot of fun. So now I want to talk about 3 games that are a little more obscure. I'll start with the least obscure of them, and that is the Free City Cadwallon. There's a few board games in the Cadwallon universe, Guilds of Cadwallon, Cadwallon City of Thieves, but this is the role-playing game setting, and I just think it's a really, really fascinating universe. Mechanically, not my favorite. I think it can be tightened up a little bit, but it absolutely is a very tactical game. It's super analytical, which is very interesting because I think the world lends itself very well to RP, and this doesn't do that as much. But if you are into the universe presented in the Cadwallon area, then definitely check this out if you want an RP experience. So, kind of going a very other direction with things is Waste World. This is super duper 1990s. It is giant robots and the Wild West and the Far East and aliens and floating sky ships, and any word that should have a C in it instead has a K. It's pretty ridiculous, but I think it has some super fun combat mechanics for being in like a high-tech, high-fantasy world. It is honestly one of the only games that I have seen that handles automatic gunfire in a really, really interesting way. And we can maybe talk more about that later, which I will bring up again. But super duper over the top, super duper fun. I really recommend checking out Waste World. So the last one is actually something that I've mentioned in a previous video, and that is the Amber Diceless RPG. This is based on a series of books by Roger Zelazny, where there is the premise of the universe is that there's really only one true city, true universe called Amber, and every other world, including the one we live in, Earth, is a reflection of Amber in some way. It's, at some point in Amber's history, something happened to split off into what the world is now. But one of the really interesting things about Amber, that is a central point in the books, is that gunpowder does not work there. So it's pretty cool. Like, you have all of these high-tech worlds kind of surrounding this fantasy kingdom, but they're untouched by some of the like weaponry and stuff like that. But the really cool thing about Amber Diceless is that it's exactly that. It's diceless. Everyone at character creation has a certain number of points that they can bid in each of the main characteristics. So say you go into the strength bid, you say, okay, well, I'm going to bid 75 of my 400 points, and everybody bids blind, and then you reveal, and whoever has bid the most points, their points are taken away from them, and they are number 1 in strength. They cannot be beat in a contest of strength. Then whoever bid the second most is the second strongest, and it's this like tiered system, and that's really cool. So if you're ever in a fight and the number 1 is fighting the number 3 in strength, well, the number 1 is going to win that contest of strength. So it's up to the RP and the mechanics of the game to determine, like, well, how's that combat going to roll out? Can it turn into a battle of wits where that number 3 might be number 2 in intelligence, but the really, really strong person is 5 in intelligence? So that's really cool. That is a really fantastic setting. Kind of hard to find, but I believe on Drive-Thru RPG you can get a copy of the PDF. Those are my RPGs. Kind of 6 really important games to me, and there are countless more. I could, if they weren't all packed up, I would show my RPG collection, but we're getting ready for a move, so a lot of them are in boxes, but I kept these out because I like to read them a lot of the time. They're important to me. So sometimes it's fun to just pick up a book, even if you've read it cover to cover, and read through and refresh yourself on mechanics. So there's 2 things that I want to talk about, and I think they're both pretty neat. I want to get everybody involved in this. And the first one is, I would like you, viewers and other spooners, meeples, whatever we're calling ourselves these days, to help me pick which of these RPGs that I've talked about to go into an in-depth discussion of in my next video. It could even be 2, like if 2 are super close together or tied or something, maybe I'll either do an extended episode or do 2 releases, but I'd really love to make people happy and dive into one of these in depth. Obviously, one of the more obscure ones is more fun for me, but I absolutely would have no problem jumping into Dungeons & Dragons or Fate Core or Iron Kingdoms, most certainly. And the second thing that I would like to talk about is the fact that there are 5 Wednesdays in July. So, July 29th is the 5th Wednesday in July. I would like to run a role-playing game. Just like a one-shot, or if it goes super well, we can work something out for a multi-session thing. But I'd love for you guys to pick a system that you want me to run. We can make characters in a separate session, or do it all together, kind of lump it into one big thing, make characters separately and just come in for a session. But I would love to do that and broadcast it via Hangouts. So if you are interested in taking part in either the voting for something that you would like me to dive in depth on, or taking place in the broadcasted RPG night on July 29th. We'll call it our BG, or not BGG Cant, but Gen Cant 2015 kickoff party. For those of us not going, hell, if you're going, you're welcome to come too. If you want to do either of those things, either tweet at us or just reply to this video and let me know. Have a great night.